Okay, so good morning. A little bit freezing here, isn't it? My name is Gabor. I'm going to give you a little talk about ModuleIssues here and web development. I was wondering who has some background about. It's a beginner track, right, or newbie track or something like this. So, are you Perl programmers or what's your background? Like, who has more than 3 years of Perl programming here? Okay, almost everyone. Okay, that's good. That's good actually. Anyway, and web programming. Who's doing web programming here? Okay, some people. Okay, good. Anyway, so we're going to talk about ModuleIssues, and the thing is that when I thought about what to talk about here, and I was told, okay, this is going to be a newbie track, so I'm going to talk about something that I don't know yet. So I'm a newbie in it. So we are all newbies in this. And if you don't really like what you're hearing because because I'm a newbie in ModuleIssues, then I collected a couple of places, a couple of URLs where you can find much better content about ModuleIssues. I especially liked the second one, which was a talk given by Glenn Hinkle a couple of years ago at one of the AppSees. And you can go there and watch the video, the talk itself, and you can look at the slides. It's quite good. And then there are also the ModuleCast, which I think it has 4 or 5 episodes talking about ModuleIssues. So some really good content. And that's both good for if you didn't like this talk, and you thought it's much better to have a tea outside instead of freezing here. But I think it's very good to go there and then after the talk to learn a lot more about ModuleIssues and try to find a different angle. Especially the second talk with Glenn, he gave a lot of interesting background about ModuleIssues, a lot of things that will make you feel that you really want to use ModuleIssues. In my talk, I'll try to give more of a hands-on type of examples. There are also a couple of other examples that you can use, and you can compare different ways of programming in ModuleIssues. So what is ModuleIssues? Some people, including me, think about ModuleIssues as one of these new lightweight or relatively new lightweight frameworks, web frameworks in Perl. Bigger fonts?
Much bigger fonts.
Okay, well, I can't see it. I'll try to figure out how to do that. Sorry? But that doesn't work when I switch other slide.
Oh,
yeah, I know. Is this?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, the problem is just plus that it works on the same slide, and then I switch to the next slide, and it's back to the usual one. And it took me some time till I figured out that I have to just configure the whole browser. Anyway, so ModuleIssues was created by Sebastian Riedel, who actually created earlier Catalyst. And then the problem he felt, or at least that I hear, that Catalyst became so mainstream that making changes was more or less impossible because it would make backward incompatible changes. So progress was stalled, basically, more or less. At least progress for new kind of ways how the web could work, especially asynchronous programming and so on. And so he started ModuleIssues, which was based on Ruby Sinatra. As I understand, Ruby Sinatra is the daughter of Frank Sinatra, though I'm not really sure. The thing is that Sinatra was sort of supposed to be a Ruby-based web framework, really lightweight, just routing-based and so on. And ModuleIssues started out that way, but today it's so-called as a full web framework. And usually when we think about full web frameworks, we might think about Catalyst or something that does everything for the web backend, for the web server. In ModuleIssues, that also includes a client. Not client inside the browser, but a client like a user agent that can access web pages, like Mechanize, if you know, in Perl. Okay, so it both includes that client side and the server side. And part of the good things that, with this is that it makes it extremely easy to also test your own ModuleIssues application using this library, that part of the package. So it's a full framework, and everything comes within one single cpan distribution. So unlike other frameworks or even other simple modules in Perl that depend on a lot of other things, ModuleIssues is standalone. You can do a lot of things with ModuleIssues without any dependencies. There are a couple of optional dependencies. For example, the SSL module, if you want to do that. But in many, if you want to use secure connections. But if you don't, and in many cases when you do you write a web application, you don't really need the Perl framework to do the encryption, because you have a web front end, an Nginx or an Apache in front of it, and that does the whole encryption. And then between the Nginx and the Perl, you can already talk just regular HTTP 80, so you don't really need that. So the whole thing that you need for ModuleIssues is just the ModuleIssues module, and it doesn't depend on anything else, which some people dislike because it's sort of not the cpan way of depending on 100 other modules. But on the other hand, it has its advantages as well, because you don't depend on anything else. It's non-blocking, so you can do also asynchronous programming with it. And it has a couple of really nice features, ModuleIssues. And while you won't see it on my slides, it's very beautiful. And it must be really fun. That's what sort of the idea behind ModuleIssues. In this talk, I'm going to give you a little bit of the client side, and I will go a little bit of the back end. They have something like the CSS selectors that are used in the web usually, and ModuleIssues supports those for the client mostly. And for the testing, we go a little bit in that one as well. The way you install is either if you have a cpan client already, the regular cpan client, or cpan-m installed, then you just type that, the usual thing that you would do for installation of any cpan modules. Or if you don't want to do that, or you don't have a cpan client, then you can copy that longer URL, which is also available on the main website of ModuleIssues, and it will fetch an installation script and actually fetch cpan-, and it will install ModuleIssues automatically. So you don't need to pre-configure any cpan client for this. Though, of course, some people don't like to just execute random scripts that they downloaded from a website, which I can understand. Anyway, the client side. So there is this module called Mojo User Agent, which is the user agent. It's like a little bit like LWP user agent or Mechanize or everything inside. It has a lot of power in it. And this would be the simplest, probably the simplest script. Use strict use warnings as usual, loading the module. And then we create a user agent object. And from that we can call get, which will fetch a URL from the website. And on that object we can call the res method, which will return a result object. This is a response object. This is a Mojo message response object. Okay? And on that object, we can do a couple of things. The most basic probably is calling the body method that will just return the content of the body. So it would be whatever we would see if we went to that page and clicked on view source. That would be that returns. But we can do other things with this result object. We can call DOM on it. So instead of calling the body, we can call DOM. And it will return an object that represents the DOM, represents the whole HTML parsed into a document object model. And on that, we can call the find method that will return one piece of one tag or one sub HTML that we received back from the website. And here inside, we can use CSS selectors. So who knows what CSS selectors are here? Okay, most of the people do. Basically, what they what we can do with CSS selectors is we can, in various ways, we can declare parts of an HTML file. So for example, this one says that look for a div element, a div tag in the HTML that has an attribute which is called class, and that class has the value row and h1. And return, well, all of them. If you have a couple of these in the HTML, return all of them as objects. And then here we selected the first one. So we said arrow and then 0 because it returns an object that also behaves as an array. So this find thing returns something that the first element, and then we printed the first element. So let's try to run this. Well, I haven't tried this. Huh? Now, let's see this one. So if I paste here, and it, okay. So it went to the website. I don't know if you, how much can you see? Can you see this? No. Okay. Hmm?
Larger, please.
Yeah, all I see.
Or even larger. And try to make full screen. Okay, I can grab this one. Okay, let's see this one. So this is what I ran. And it takes some time. And then it went to the website of Yapsi, downloaded the whole front page, looked for that element, the div element with the specific class, and returned whatever is that. So it returned the div element with the class row h, and then its content. So this is quite an easy way to interrogate a website and fetch all kind of parts of it and then see what's there and do something with this. But it can do more. So if we are going to a website that returns data in JSON format, okay, for example, the API of MetaCPAN here, then we can, on the result object, we can use the JSON method, and that will actually return the JSON as an object. Okay, so we downloaded the JSON string, okay, and then parsed it into a Perl object, and the JSON method will return that JSON string. Now, I won't show you that one, but I show the next slide, where I took that JSON, put it into an object, a scalar, and then on that scalar, I accessed the one part of it. So, of course, in order to find this out, first I had to print out the whole JSON, and then look at it, and then notice that within that JSON I have a hash key called hits, and then within that another hash key called hits, and then inside it there's an array and fields and whatever, and name, and MetaCPAN API most recent, let's see. I think this one, right? So apparently this module was the most recent module uploaded to CPAN as of right now. Okay, and it's pretty nice that we can do it in one single line. Of course, probably you will want to use the newer API of MetaCPAN, which is just come out, but it works quite nicely. Then we can also use something called the JSON pointers, which is apparently is not very well known, but ModulusIssues supports it, and that's one key feature of ModulusIssues, that they're always trying to be on the bleeding edge. And actually, for a long time, at least I had perceived ModulusIssues as a sort of a moving target, so that you would do something, and then within a couple of months, your code might not work in the newer version of ModulusIssues because things have changed. And as I understand, it has slowed down a lot. So you can now quite reasonably build something on ModulusIssues and have it working for quite a long time without you needing to make changes for your code. Actually, I was quite surprised because I looked at some of these screencasts which were 3-4 years old, and they worked today. So maybe the whole idea that I had, the whole feeling that is changing too fast and changing too much, maybe the whole thing was unfounded at all. Anyway, one other thing that this ModulusIssues client has is this easy debugging. So you can just configure you set that environment variable, and then it will print out debugging messages from your ModulusIssues client script. And then one other thing that you can actually write stuff like this. So you can, with ModulusIssues comes a script called Mojo, and then you can you can tell it to get this URL, and from that URL fetch that title, the title tag. Which again, it can be really nice when we are trying to figure out how to interact with a web page from the command line, and then later on to turn it into a script. Okay, so that's more or less the client side. Of course, it has a lot more power, but that's where I got so far. The server side has the ModulusIssues framework, and then there's something called ModulusLite. And the ModulusLite is, the idea is that you can create a web application just within one single file. So you have a single Perl script, and within that Perl script you have everything. You don't need anything external files. All the features are in there, but the nice thing that when you get started, you don't have to learn about all these template files and where to put them and so on. And if you have an application in one single file, it's also much easier to distribute, because you just distribute that single file. So it looks like this. You use ModulusLite, and then you declare what's called routes. So when you visit a website, the URL is what in many frameworks we call a route. So if you go to a website / and you don't write anything else, then basically you get this route catches that request. And there's nothing more behind the URL, behind the host name. And what this does, it's not even a function here. Here we actually call. So if you look at it as a Perl script, it might look strange. But what happens here is that ModulusLite provides us a function called get that will receive here two parameters. The first one is the route, which is just the string /, and the second parameter is this hash. It looks strange, it looks something different, but that's what happens here. So once we called app start at the bottom of this 3-line script, and a web server will start, a small web server, and then if we access that page, then it will automatically return the text hello world. We don't have any code here, it's just a really simple website, but if I try to run this, let's see. Oh, it's not here. And I don't run to. Okay, so I run it with a tool called Mojo. I'll say about it in a second. It starts a web server on port 3000 by default, and then I can go there and reload that page, and I get back that hello world that the script returned. So it's pretty simple to do this. And on the command line, I get some logging message there that someone accessed the server. So, okay, I wanted to show something else here. So just restart the server. If I go there and visit another page, so let's say something else, then I get an error page. So I visited the same application that earlier returned the hello world, but now that I'm trying to access a URL that hasn't been declared, a route that hasn't been declared, then I get this error page. It tells me that the route I actually have is the /route for GET requests, and then it also provides me all kind of other information that can help me. So Mojo is a small web server that, or it's a tool to run a small web server, mostly for development purposes. You wouldn't do this on a production server. On a production server, it wouldn't be in debug mode, so you wouldn't get this kind of error messages, because that would, well, it would be useful for someone to visiting your site maybe, but not for the right reason. But that's not really useful while you're writing your program to get all kind of these debugging messages. And at the same time, it also complained about, on the console, about some secret. And this secret is actually only relevant when you're doing sessions. But I don't really like these error messages on my console. So one of the first things I do is that I, well, maybe it's not the first thing. There was another slide. So anyway, the first thing I do is call this secrets method. That's actually something that changed in the last, I think, 2 years. It used to be secret, now it's secrets. And it used to accept one value, now it accepts an array. And then I put some kind of a string there, and that string should be actually really secure. So that should be something private that I don't advertise. But that's used to encrypt basically the session objects. It's not really important for now. I just mentioned it because that thing on the console always bothers me. So anyway, what might have bothered you here in this script is that I just started to write the code loading the module without saying use strict and use warnings that I always preach to everyone who uses Perl. And the reason I don't need to do that is that because ModulusLite, when I load it, it automatically loads these 4 modules. So it uses use strict and use warnings for my code, and UTF-8, so I can use Unicode in the code, and it also uses the features of 510, so I can use the save function, basically. All the others are more or less, there's also the defined OR, but that you don't need the features. Anyway, so that's what use ModulusLite do, and so I don't need to add the use strict myself. Then in the next slide, what I showed you is that setting the secret, so you can get rid of that message. But that's still just sending something back to the user. Now let's write another route that will echo back something that we can type in. So here I created a new route to /echo that will react to the GET request, and automatically it will return this text, basically, which is an HTML, a snippet of HTML that will put a form on the web page. So normally when you're writing your code, you don't have to stop and restart the server every time because you're editing the same file, and then Mojo notices then when the file changes and it restarts the server. But because here I'm just having different scripts, I have to stop the script and start something else, which is a bit annoying, but if you would see me typing, that would be much more annoying. So I think it's better this way. So I'm going back. I started the new script, and I'm running maybe the wrong script. Echo form. No, it's the right string. Oh, sorry. So the main page is still hello world. Okay, let's look at this one. The main page is still the hello world, returning the hello world, but I have a different URL called echo. So and usually it's better if I don't stop the server. Here we are. So it's quite basic. It just returned that HTML that I told it to return. And what happens if I type in, I don't know, foo, and I click on echo, it will give me a new error message. And the reason it will give me an error message is, let's look at this. It says that it has the slash and the /echo, but my request was a post method. So if we look at again to at the source code, in the form I set the method to be post. While in the script I only declare the route for GET requests. And some people might feel that, okay, why do I need to do it both? Why do I need to do separate for the GET request and the POST request? But that's actually a really good thing, because this means that I can fine-tune that for the GET request I do something, and for the POST request on the same URL I do something completely different. And so here I have the GET request, and I need to implement the part of the POST request, which looks like this. And here's the first time when I'm returning something, when I'm providing something to the route, something that is not just simple a hash reference. But this time the second parameter is an anonymous subroutine. So I declare sub. I have to put the sub here, unlike here, where I don't have the sub. And then I have real code that I'm running here. This function, the first parameter that is going to receive, is the controller, in what's called the ModulusIssues controller. So this is this module here, down here, ModulusIssues controller. So this is the object that represents basically the information about everything that ModulusIssues knows about these requests. It has also the request, it has also the response, so everything that needs to be known in order to handle this, this current request. So that's why we are taking it from the parameter list, from @_. And then on that object, it's usually called $C for some reason, probably because it's controller. Although I noticed that in the documentation in some places, they call it self, as a normal module would do. But I think in the context of ModulusIssues, people usually call it $C because it's the controller. So on that, I can call the render module, the render function, sorry. And to that, I can provide all kind of parameters. The first one that you can see here is the text parameter that is supposed to receive. It's quite similar to this one, like here, except that now I can create the text on the fly. Unlike the previous one where I just had to hard code the whole text. Now this one is going to return the text. In the end, it's probably HTML, but I can create it myself. So what I return here is I call the para method. The para method will accept the name of a parameter, and then if we go here, actually you can see here. So this form has an input, a text input, which has a name Q. So that's what's going to be passed to the server. But whatever I type in, that's going to be in that Q parameter, and this param Q will fetch that value. And the whole thing that this echo does is just returns that string. So if I start this script, which is called just echo, and I just go back here so you see I can reload this, and I type here YAPC and click echo, and then that goes to the server, and it just sends back the word that I typed in. So, and that's it basically, right? That's what you need to know in order to start building web applications. You can send some content to the client, and you can accept some input from the client, and then do some lookup in a database and send back the data. And there you go, you have Google. Okay, so basically. Of course, there's some little bit more to Google, but it's not much more. So that's basically the whole thing. When you're doing these pages, just returning a simple string is not really usually very nice. Usually you want to have some more HTML, and then most of that HTML is going to be the same, and you only put in some values in there. So having the whole thing within the script, within the Perl code, is going to be really look like you're from the 80s, writing programming in the 80s, and you don't really want to do that. So instead of that, ModulusIssues allows us to put the template, these HTML templates within the script, but behind the data, whatever it's called, tag. Okay, so if you don't know, whatever comes under this __data__, it's disregarded by Perl. The script has access to it, but you can put there anything, any text, and the Perl script won't care. But ModulusIssues uses this to allow us to put templates there. So in this case, I created one single template, it starts with these two @signs, the name of the template, and then just html.ep. EP is I think it's called embedded Perl. I think that's the name of the templating system. It's really simple. I'll show you a couple of examples, but basically it's just a little bit more Perl code within the template. So what we have here is just some HTML. Again, it's quite simple here, so the slides won't be too big. And it just shows the same HTML that earlier we had within the get echo route. Now, in order to access that template and return that template, I had to convert the echo route into something that's actually code instead of what I had earlier that was just returning the text. But that's a little price to pay in order to have everything separated into a template. So that would work the same. I don't show it here now. What I can do is I can put more templates there. So I can put several templates. So I have the first template will just be the first page, just showing the form. And then I can put another template, which is going to be the response, which is almost the same that we had earlier. We earlier just returned the string that we got. Now this time I put here you typed and whatever the user typed in. Now this thing is part of the templating system of ModuleIssues. What it says that between these signs, is less than and then percentage and equal, and then the closing part of it, here I can put basically Perl code. And the simplest Perl code is just a scalar. So what ModuleIssues will do is interpolate the value of the message scalar into this place. Now, where do we get this message scalar? That's what we passed here to the render method. So the render method gets the name of the template. Here we have response.html.ep. That's what we get here. That's what we pass here. And it can get also key value pairs that will be converted into variables in the template, and then I can use those variables and put then their value in whatever place I want in the template. So we clean the code a little bit, because now all the HTML, all the display part is in the templates, and all the code part is within the code. Of course, when you're building an application, soon you will realize that you have several pages, and 90% of all the pages, or parts of the pages, or 99% is the same. So you all want to have the same header, the same menu, the same background, whatever, on all the pages, and only some part of the content it changes. So instead of having in every template the same thing repeated, we can merge these. Okay, sorry, that wasn't the one. Okay, let's skip here. If I already told you about this. Okay, so we're talking about the layouts, and I'll go back to the one. So here you can have layouts. So what we had here is, we have the template, the echo HTML HP, and then I declare that this is using the template, which is called, the layout, which is called wrapper. And within the same part, so within the underscore, under the data part, I create another piece of template, basically, which is placed sort of in a directory. It's physically still in the script, but it looks like as if it was in a subdirectory called layouts, and within there there was a file. So layouts wrapper HTML. And what ModuleIssues does is that when it processes the echo template, so up here when I say render the echo template, then it will take the echo template, render it itself, okay, put the variables to replace the variables with whatever values I wanted, and then take the whole result and put in the content instead of this content placeholder in the layout. So now I have this layout, and one single part is going to be replaced by the specific template I'm using for that page. Okay, just let me see what yeah, that's actually an important part that I skipped here. Within the templates, we can do basically any Perl script. And so we can write any Perl code. So for example, we can do conditionals. For this, we start the line with an ampersand sign, and then write on that same line some Perl code, for example, an if statement. Then after, on the lines that don't start with an ampersand, that's just plain HTML. For example, here, that's part of the loop. And then another percentage slide, sorry. And then that's again Perl code. So if you look at just this and this line, the two lines starting with a percentage sign, then you can see a Perl loop. Nothing, sorry, a Perl if statement. But it could be a loop as well. So it's just Perl code. And then within there, the lines that don't start with percentage signs, they are just plain HTML or whatever you put there. Yeah.
Does an EP stand for ePerl?
It's, I think, embedded Perl.
Embedded Perl.
Because Perl, so EP stands for, there is for embedded Perl, I think, because Perl is embedded into the HTML. It's like in the 90s, that was one of the, sorry?
SSI or something like that. SSI, server side.
Yeah, it's like the server side, whatever. People don't like it, but in the end, so templating systems are always starting out with, okay, we just need a placeholder for something, and then they suddenly turn into their own programming language. And then we have tons of templating systems. So there's always a question whether we want to have a separate language for the templating system, which everyone has to learn, or if we want to use the same language that we are already programming in. And then there is templating toolkit that will say, okay, do this or that, or it doesn't matter. Okay, you can do both. Which can be good, but if you don't pay attention, then it can really get out of hand quite easily. Sorry, yeah.
Are there any security concerns coming from the fact that you can put the Perl code into the template?
If there are any security issues with the Perl being in the template, I don't think so. Well, probably. Everything has security issues. Internet runs on the server, so you still have to take care that your parameters are sanitized or checked at least that the proper values. But I think as long as you don't try to execute code here, so yeah, there can be issues because if you give it to someone who is not a Perl programmer and starts because now you want the designer to do this part, or I don't know, then they might just core system with the parameters, and then there you have a security problem. So there can be the security issues, but I think that's yeah. So if you do this separation, then it might be problematic. Separation, I mean that you have a separate person who is not a Perl programmer or not a Perl programmer who knows the possible issues that you're not supposed to call system or do all kind of external things with parameters that you haven't checked. Okay, that's, I think. Okay, so this is just a simple slide that I showed that I put here some CSS style within the same template, which is the same layout. It's not really important. My design capabilities are really, really negative, I think, so it's better not to see this. But the point is that now I already have like this huge template part, a little Perl script and a huge template, and maybe it's time to separate the whole thing out. And start to convert from the ModulusLite to a real ModuleIssues application where we have multiple files. So just to show you here, I took the CSS and I put it somewhere. Where is it? It's gone here. So I just put it, referenced it here. And then put it in the subdirectory called public. So I have the script, the main script, I create a subdirectory called public just next to it, and the Mojo, the web server, automatically will serve static files from that public directory. Okay, so what I needed to do is I took the CSS part from my template, created a subdirectory called public next to the script. So yeah, actually I can show you here. Probably it's better. So this is how this new, let's say, application looks like. APPL is my main ModuleIssues application, okay, all 3 lines or 4, I don't know, I have. And then I lost my mouse somewhere here, okay. And then next to it there is a directory called public, and within there is a CSS file now. And when I reference that CSS file, as normally probably I would in an HTML page, saying /style CSS, then automatically the Mojo server will look for that style CSS in the public directory next to my main script. And that's it. And of course I can put there images and whatever else I want. Okay, so basically that's the main part of ModuleIssues. And then you could have started, we started with just writing script. You could have started with a tool called Mojo, the tool called Mojo that comes with ModuleIssues, saying Mojo generate light app. So it's going to create a light application and then say the name of the script, or it automatically creates one if you don't need, say the name, and it will create this file, which is quite a basic. So it will just create a simple script with a couple of lines, a little bit of template. One nice thing is that it uses the plugin called PortRenderer that will allow you to see the documentation of ModuleIssues on your own web application now. So it can be useful during development, that you have in a nicely formatted way, nicely rendered the whole documentation of ModuleIssues. But then you can go on and work with this. On the other hand, if you really want to get started with a ModuleIssues application, then you can write Mojo generate up instead of apply, and then it will create a layout of directories and a couple of files that will be the skeleton for your ModuleIssues application. And here you have a module where you put your implementation, public where you can put the static files, and script where is your main script that's usually more or less empty. Most of your code is in the PM file already. T where you have the test scripts already to test your web application, and templates are where you put all the templates, and then within that there is the layouts where you would put the layout, so whatever will show the whole page of your application. So that's basically how you can get started with the ModuleIssues application instead of a light one, which is just a single file. Routing I mentioned at the beginning, and that's the whole basics of ModuleIssues. So we started with get and slash, and then get slash echo, and then we used post slash echo. Actually, we can have a lot of other different routes. So we can declare routes. The first one here is just a static fixed route. So someone who visits the /list/ home page will get whatever that route does. The second one says that whoever visits the /item /something, doesn't matter what page, then this route will be executed, and whatever was here instead of that colon ID will be accessible by param ID. So it's similar how you would access parameters that the user passes within the URL after the question mark. That's just general HTTP parameters. But here, the part of the URL was converted into parameters in a similar way. So if you want to have a URL that says item and then numbers 42, for example, you can easily convert the whole thing into a single route which was coded by this, declared by this, and then in the param method you can access the second part of the of the URL. And that can create really nice URLs. This colon ID, and it can be any colon anything, of course. And this thing will capture anything that doesn't have a dot or a slash in it. So if you have /item /something else, then this route won't match it because it has a slash in there. It will only match something that says /item /stuff without dot and without slash. If you would like to catch things that contain dots, for example, you want to catch phone and a phone number that might look like this. Okay? Thanks. It looks like this. Then I can use the pound sign, and this, if I say pound something, then this placeholder or this thing that will capture that part of the URL will be ready to capture also dots. And if I want to capture everything, including dots and including slashes, then I can put this wildcard, the star, and some name there, and then no matter /pass/ doesn't matter what comes there, will be coded by this route, the function will run, and whatever was coming after the pass will be accessible through the param method, anything. Yeah, I can show you this, but I will skip the whole, it's the same things, just trying to show that it works, but I can probably believe. The templating system either looks like this, so you can put %sign on the front line, on the beginning of the line, and the rest of the line is just Perl code. And the special case is the %equal, which will just do interpolation of a single variable. Or you can do the same with something that looks like HTML, and that allows us to put actually HTML in front on the same line. So in the first case, the line that starts with the %sign must contain only Perl code. The second case will allow us to put HTML around it. And in some cases, and especially when we want to embed a single value, that's very useful because you have some HTML, here comes the value, some more HTML. And then it's much more useful this way. But in the end, it doesn't matter. It's just how your template will look like. That's how only that matters. So EP, embedded Perl. Yeah. In case, and that's quite a big issue, I think, in case you would like to return a JSON because you're writing an API, and that's one of the really good uses for ModulusLite, that you build an API and you want to see how it works. The only thing you need to do is that in the render method, instead of saying text and giving a string, you say JSON and you give it a reference to whatever, an array, a hash. It will convert it into a JSON with its own internal JSON converter. It doesn't depend on any external JSON converter, and return that JSON as a string. Okay, so it's quite easy to do that. Testing, that's quite important, I think. So within the test file, which is a something.t usually in the T directory, not in our case, not in this case, I used load the test more module, I use the test Mojo, and then I load the application script here. Okay, so APPL is my application script, where I implemented my application. And then I can run this, the test Mojo, got this into this T object, and then I say get OK. We'll check whether I can access the route, which is called slash. Okay, and then on that object, I can call all kind of other methods. So instead, it won't return true or false. It will return its own object, and then I can call other methods on it. And then I can check whether the status was 200, and whether there is a text. And here, this is a CSS selector. So I say, OK, select the header element, and within that, select the title element, and check whether the value of it is to do. These letters, exactly. And then there is another one here, another HTML CSS selector, checks whether there is an A element, okay, a link, that has an href equals to slash. So if there is a link to the home page. And whether the text on it is called home. So what's inside the A element, the text. So this is basically how we can write, and I can also write post OK, and it will just send a post request, and then I can. This post request has, of course, in addition to the URL, also has some data in the form, and then I can check whether the results the results look like what I expected. So it's quite easy to test the applications. Deployment, okay, there are the ModuleIssues guidebook. Actually, I have 1 more minute for 3 more slides, I think. Okay, so the deployment is, there is a quite good documentation of ModuleIssues. So you can look up how you can deploy it. You can deploy it as a CGI script. And actually, I used this because in one place where I was in an environment where I have really little control, I inherited a bunch of CGI scripts, pure, real old CGI scripts, and I couldn't change the environment. So I started to write my applications and run them as a CGI, in the hope that one day I'll have enough political power in the organization to move the whole thing into some more reasonable deployment solution. But then I already have a good code that I can easily move it. So that's actually not, you make sure that you think about that possibility. You can also run with PS, with some plug server, but there is another server called Hypnotoad, which comes with ModuleIssues, so you don't need to install anything else. It's a replacement for Morbo, basically, or another alternative to Morbo, where Morbo is the development server and Hypnotoad is the production server. So it, for example, won't show the debugging messages from your application to the clients, and has all kind of other nice features. And then there are 3 more slides that I can't probably show you, but the last one I want to show you only. Do you know what WebSockets are? Who knows what WebSockets are? Okay, so basically for the others, it's a way to, the problem with how the web works mostly is that the client and the server are always disconnected, and for every request the client has to go up to the server and ask something. And if I want to send something from the server, then the only way I can really do it is that I write the client in a way that it will check every second or every 5 seconds if the server has anything new to say, because the server can't initiate a connection. But it creates a lot of load. So WebSockets will build up a connection between the client and the server that will remain open, the connection. That will basically reduce the cost of this asking the server again and again, and it will allow the server to send in data. So let me just show you this example. A little chat server that, this is not the right thing. Morbo. So if I visit this page now, I can type here, what am I? I'm Chrome. Probably, and maybe, yes. Okay, so I can type in messages, and the other one will see it. And, well, you won't see it because it's too small. Anyway, that's it. Now, if we had time, we could actually access the server, then we could talk to each other on the chat server. Thank you very much. The slides will be somewhere. Okay?